You have been taught a lie your entire life. You have been searching for a savior, a power, a presence outside of your own being, and in doing so, you have completely overlooked the one staggering fact that changes everything. There is no separation between you and the source of all life. The entire search ends right here, right now, not by acquiring something new, but by waking up to what has always been true, but has remained hidden in plain sight. What you are about to hear will dismantle the very foundation of your seeking and reveal the one and only place where true fulfillment can ever be found. Stay with this, for we are going to explore what actually happens when the last veil drops and you truly understand the unspeakable mystery of Christ in you. For your entire spiritual life, you have been conditioned to look upward and outward. You have been taught to pray to a distant deity, to seek blessings from a power separate from yourself, to strive for a grace that must descend upon you from some heavenly realm. This is the great foundational lie of human consciousness. It is the primary error that perpetuates every form of lack, fear, and incompleteness you will ever experience. The moment this truth dawns, not as an intellectual concept, but as a living, breathing reality, is the moment the entire external structure of your search collapses into dust. It is not that God disappears. It is that you suddenly realize God was never there to begin with in the way you were taught. God, the infinite I am, the very substance of all being, was always, only, and ever here. The search for a distant savior is the very activity that blinds you to the presence that you are. Consider the profound weariness that comes from this endless seeking. You pray for peace, straining to connect with a peace you believe exists outside. You strive for supply, begging a distant provider to fill your bank account. You seek healing, hoping a power from beyond will enter your body and fix what is broken. This entire framework is built on the premise of a separation that does not exist. It is a spiritual treadmill, and you have been running on it for lifetimes, wondering why the scenery never changes, why the destination never arrives. The collapse of the external search is the shocking, liberating realization that the treadmill is an illusion. You can simply step off. The peace you seek is not a condition to be granted. It is the very nature of your own conscious awareness when it is no longer projected outward. The supply you need is not a quantity of things to be shipped to you. It is the omnipresent substance of the universe, which is your own substance, and it is recognized as it flows through you, not to you. Let this be practical. You are in a situation at work where conflict arises. The old way, the external way, is to look for a solution in the other person's change of heart, in a new company policy, in a favorable outcome. You are seeking your harmony out there. You are a slave to the external scene. But when the collapse occurs, you are thrown back, not upon your own human wit or psychological power, but upon the profound, silent, and undeniable fact of the indwelling presence. You stop looking for God to fix the other person. You turn within, not to pray for change, but to acknowledge the only presence and power that is. In that acknowledgement, a shift occurs. You are no longer a small, separate person facing a problem. You are the very consciousness in which the entire situation appears. From that standpoint, your words, your actions, are no longer reactive defenses of a fragile self. They become spontaneous, intelligent, and harmonious movements of the one life expressing itself. The situation resolves, not because you manipulated it, but because you ceased to empower the illusion of separation that created it in the first place. This is the great upheaval. The collapse of the external God is the most terrifying and glorious event in an individual's life. It is terrifying because it pulls the rug out from under every dependency you have ever known. It feels like spiritual free fall, but it is glorious because it is the end of dependency. It is the discovery of your own divine sovereignty. You are no longer a beggar at the gates of a king's palace. You suddenly realize you have been heir to the entire kingdom all along, but were living in the servants' quarters, convinced of your own poverty. Your relationship with the universe changes from one of petition to one of recognition. You do not ask life to be good to you. You recognize that you are one with the source of all goodness. You do not beg for love. You realize you are a localized expression of infinite love itself, and you let that love flow out from your center to meet the world. This is not a philosophy of self-aggrandizement. This is the humbling discovery that your personal self, the one you thought was you, is utterly incapable of achieving anything of spiritual significance. Its only legitimate function is to step aside and consent to be the vehicle, the transparency for the one that has always been here. The search is over because the seeker has finally discovered that what he was seeking was the very consciousness with which he was seeking. This realization, this collapse of the external search, inevitably and irrevocably leads to the next great upheaval, the dissolution of the separate sense of self. When you are no longer relating to God as a separate being, you can no longer maintain the illusion of yourself as a separate being, the I, that you have spent a lifetime protecting, improving, and defending begins to lose its solidity. It was a construct, a fiction born entirely from the belief in separation, and its foundation is now gone. You start to see that the person you thought you were, with its unique set of problems, its personal history of triumphs and failures, its isolated will, was never the real being at all. It was a temporary formation, a wave upon the ocean, now beginning to settle back into the fathomless depth from which it arose. This is not a loss of identity, but the discovery of your true identity. The profound thrill is that you are not being annihilated, you are being returned to your original, natural state. The strain of maintaining the separate self is what constitutes the entirety of human suffering. Think of the constant mental commentary, the internal narration that judges, plans, worries, and regrets. This is the voice of the separate I, and its full-time job is to prove its own existence through conflict, desire, and fear. When this sense of self begins to dissolve, it is as if a constant low, grayed noise you never knew was there suddenly ceases. The relief is palpable and profound. The energy once consumed in propping up this fictional entity is now freed, and you experience a lightness of being, a quiet joy that has no cause in the outer world. Observe this in a moment of irritation. The old, familiar reaction arises when someone cuts you off in traffic. The immediate, visceral response is, how dare they do this to me? The entire event is filtered through the lens of a personal insult to a separate, fragile self. But in a moment of clarity, of what we might call grace, something different occurs. You see the car move, you feel the physiological jolt, but the story of me as the victim does not take root. The reaction arises, and finding no solid self to land on, it simply dissipates. There is no one there to be offended. There is awareness of the event, but not a personal ownership of it. This is the practical dissolution at work. It is not that you become a passive doormat, it is that you are no longer a reactor. Life flows through you, and you respond from a place of innate intelligence, not from a defended citadel of I. This dissolution revolutionizes your most intimate relationships. Previously, love was often a transaction between two separate selves, a negotiation of needs and expectations. Do you love me? Are you meeting my needs? What about me? This is the exhausting arithmetic of the ego. When the separate sense of self softens, love is no longer something you give or get. It is what you are. You do not love your partner. You are loathe, and your partner is an expression of that same loathe. The relationship is no longer two isolated islands trying to build a bridge to one another. It is the recognition of one ocean appearing as two waves. The conflicts that once seemed so personal and monumental lose their sting because they were based on the false premise of two separate entities clashing. Now there is a shared being, a unified consciousness in which harmony is the natural state, not a goal to be achieved. Even your sense of purpose is transformed. The separate self is driven by a need to achieve, to build a legacy, to become somebody. Its actions are fueled by the desire for reward and the fear of punishment. When this self dissolves, action does not cease. It is purified. You find yourself moving, doing, and creating, but the frantic urgency is gone. There is no longer a somebody to become. You act because life acts through you. Your work in the world becomes a spontaneous expression of the divine impulse. An activity done for its own sake, not for the aggrandizement of a personal self. The artist becomes the brushstroke, the healer becomes the healing presence, the teacher becomes the lesson itself. This is the ultimate freedom to live in the world fully and completely without beings of the world, because the you that was of the world has been seen through. It was a phantom, and in its place is the vast, silent, and potent presence of I Am. And so, with the collapse of the external search and the dissolution of the separate self, you arrive at the most profound and paradoxical of all transitions, the end of seeking and the beginning of being. All spiritual practice, All striving, all effort to attain a higher state was the activity of that very same separate self you now realize was an illusion. Its frantic search for God, for enlightenment, for peace, was the final and most subtle proof of its own existence. To seek is to affirm that you do not already have what you are seeking. The moment you truly understand that the Christ, the I Am, is your very own consciousness, the entire machinery of seeking grinds to a halt. There is no place to go, nothing to attain, no higher state to achieve. You are, here and now, what you have been seeking. The pursuit is over. This is not a state of passivity or stagnation. It is the activation of a dimension of life you were previously too busy seeking to notice. Imagine spending your entire life in a room, tirelessly searching for a precious jewel, tearing up the floorboards, dismantling the furniture, your back turned to the center of the room where the jewel has been sitting on a pedestal, glowing all the while. The end of seeking is the moment you finally turn around. The struggle ceases, not because you found it through effort, but because you finally opened your eyes to what was already radiantly present. The energy that was once consumed in the search is now freed, and it floods your being as a vibrant, creative stillness. You are no longer a hunter on a trail. You are the forest itself, alive, complete, and teeming with intelligence. Consider how this transforms your daily experience. You sit down to meditate. The old way was to strive for a quiet mind, to fight thoughts, to attempt to reach a state of blank emptiness. This is seeking. It is the self trying to become something other than what it is. But when seeking ends, meditation is no longer a doing. It is a settling into the being that you are. You are not trying to contact God. You are resting as the awareness in which the concept of God and the concept of you arise and subside. The thoughts come and go, but they are no longer a problem to be solved. They are like clouds passing through the vast sky of your own awareness, and you are the sky, not the clouds. The profound peace you were seeking through control is discovered as the natural state when all control is relinquished. This principle applies to every facet of life. You have a problem to solve, a creative project to undertake. The seeker's approach is to strain, to brainstorm, to force a solution from the limited resources of the personal mind. This is the activity of a self that believes it is separate from infinite intelligence. But when seeking ends, you approach the problem from an entirely different dimension. You first acknowledge the truth that the infinite mind is your mind, that the solution is already present within the fabric of the situation itself. You do not force. You listen. You become quiet. You become receptive. And you wait upon the impulse from within. It may come as a sudden insight while you are walking, a word from a friend, an intuitive nudge. The action you then take is not the result of anxious calculation, but a spontaneous, confident movement that seems to do itself. You are not the creator of the solution. You are the instrument through which the solution reveals itself. The end of seeking is the death of the spiritual consumer. It marks the transition from being a student of truth to being the living embodiment of truth. There are no more books to read that will give you what you lack. No more teachers to follow who can grant you what is not already your own. This can feel like a terrifying loneliness at first, as all the external crutches are kicked away. But this loneliness quickly blossoms into the most profound solitude, the realization that you are one with the source of all that is. Your relationship with spiritual literature, with teachings, changes completely. You no longer read to acquire knowledge, but to celebrate and recognize the truth that you already are. The words no longer point to a distant goal. They resonate with the living reality of your own being. You have come home, and the frantic, desperate search that defined your entire life is seen for what it was, a dream of separation from which you have now, blessedly, awoken. Resting in this being, with the frantic search concluded, a new faculty of perception awakens spontaneously. This is not an improvement of your human vision. It is a transformation of it. You are no longer looking at life through the distorting lens of a separate self. That lens, which colored every event with personal preference, fear and judgment simply drops away. What remains is a clarity of sight that perceives the spiritual substance shining through the form. This is the shift from human perception to spiritual discernment. You are no longer deceived by the appearance of things. Where you once saw a problem, you may now see a divine opportunity. Where you once saw an enemy, you may now see a face of God you have not yet recognized. The world itself has not changed, but the consciousness through which it is perceived has been utterly revolutionized, and therefore the world to you is made new. This is the practical fulfillment of the promise that the pure in heart shall see God. It is not that they will see a man in the clouds, but that they will perceive the divine reality animating every person, every situation, every leaf and stone. A piece of music is no longer just a sequence of pleasing sounds. It becomes a direct expression of the harmony of the universe, and you feel it resonating in the very core of your being. A conversation is no longer a mere exchange of words between two personalities. It becomes a sacred communion, a dance of the one consciousness expressing itself in a beautiful duality. You look at a tree and you do not see a separate object out there. You feel the one life pushing into form as treeness, and you recognize that same life pushing into form as you. The perceived boundary between the seer and the seen softens and dissolves. Let this become tangible. You receive a piece of difficult news, a financial reversal, a diagnosis. The human perception, the old way, immediately launches into a catastrophic narrative. It calculates the loss. It projects a fearful future. It feels the sting of personal victimhood. The entire world seems to contract into this one dark point. But with spiritual perception, something else is simultaneously present. You are aware of the human reaction. You feel the physiological sensations. But you are also perceiving the situation from a different dimension. You are aware of a profound, unshakable stillness at the center of the storm. You perceive the situation not as a solid, immutable block of misfortune, but as a fluid, temporary formation in consciousness. You are able to look at the fear instead of from the fear. This does not make you cold or unfeeling. It makes you free. From this place, your response is not one of panic, but of a quiet, intelligent wisdom that knows how to move, what step to take, or when to be perfectly still, all while anchored in a peace that the outer circumstances cannot touch. This transformed perception enchants the world of your daily routine. Washing dishes is no longer a mundane chore to be finished as quickly as possible. As you feel the warm water on your hands, as you see the light glint off a soap bubble, you are participating in a sacred ceremony. You are perceiving the infinite expressing itself as the activity of washing, the water, the plate, and the awareness witnessing it all. There is no longer a you doing a chore. There is only the divine play of consciousness, and you are that. Driving to work is no longer a stressful commute through traffic. It becomes a moving meditation. You perceive the flow of cars as a river of life. You see the other drivers not as obstacles, but as fellow expressions of the one self, all journeying together. The irritation of a traffic jam loses its power because your perception is no longer trapped within the limited goal of getting from point A to point B. You are already home wherever you are. You are perceiving from the center, and the center is everywhere. The world is saturated with meaning, not a meaning you assign to it, but a meaning that radiates from its very source, which is the I am that you are. The veil of the temple has been rent in twain from top to bottom, and the Holy of Holies is revealed to be every moment, every object, every breath. When your perception is cleansed of the personal sense of self, you no longer live in a universe of scarcity, striving to pull good toward you from the outside. You have awakened to the stunning reality that you are at the very center of an infinite fountain. The good you once sought does not come to you, it flows out from you, because you are one with its source. This is the spontaneous fulfillment of experience from within. It is not the law of attraction, which is often just the ego's desire dressed in spiritual clothing. This is the law of identity. You do not attract what you want. You express what you are. The outer world, freed from the distortion of your personal demands and fears, begins to reorganize itself effortlessly as a perfect and harmonious witness to the truth of your being. This is the secret behind the lilies of the field. They do not toil or spin because their entire existence is a receptive activity of allowing the one life to express itself as lily. They are rooted in their source, and their needs are met from that root. In the same way, when you are rooted in the I am, your life ceases to be a series of problems to be solved and becomes a graceful unfolding of divine provision. You are not managing a life. You are expressing life itself. The anxiety that once accompanied your decisions, the fear of choosing wrongly, of missing your opportunity, melts away. How can you miss what is emanating from your own being? Your journey is not a path you walk upon, but a path that is laid down by your very footstep. The next stone appears only as you take the next step in faith, not before. Observe how this works in the realm of supply. The old consciousness of lack operates by looking at an empty bank account and feeling fear, then trying to wrestle supply from a resistant world. This very fear contracts your consciousness and reinforces the appearance of lack. But from the realized standpoint, you turn completely away from the appearance. You do not deny it, but you refuse to grant it the power of reality. You turn within and acknowledge the one and only substance, the infinite, formless resource of the universe, and you know with a certainty beyond intellect that this substance is your very own nature. You abide in this knowing, and then you are moved to act. Perhaps you make a phone call you had been avoiding. Perhaps an idea for service emerges from within. The action is not born of panic, but of inspiration. And the fulfillment that comes is not a dramatic windfall that reinforces the personal self, but a seamless and natural meeting of the need, often in a way you could never have engineered, leaving you with a sense of quiet gratitude, not personal triumph. This principle extends to your relationships and your sense of purpose. You are no longer trying to extract love, validation, or companionship from others. You are resting as love, and from that fullness, you engage with the world. Your conversations are no longer about getting something, but about sharing the being that you are. People may not understand the shift consciously, but they will feel it. They will feel seen, not used. They will feel the space you hold for them, a space free of judgment and expectation. And in that sacred space, relationships heal and transform of their own accord. Your purpose is no longer a goal to be achieved in the future. It is a quality of being to be expressed now. You are not working to become a success. You are expressing the success of the divine idea in this moment. Your work becomes an act of worship, a celebration of the infinite, expressing itself through your unique form. A project does not feel like a burden, but like a current that carries you. Ideas come, resources align, and the right people appear, not because you manipulated the world, but because you aligned yourself with the principle that the universe is forever outpouring its goodness from the center of your own awareness. You have stopped chasing reflections and have turned to face the light. And so we arrive at the natural, inevitable conclusion of this entire inner revolution. You cease to live your life, and you begin to find life living you. This is the final surrender and the ultimate freedom, to live as a conscious instrument of the divine impulse. There is no longer a you who decides what to do with your life, who struggles to discern God's will as if it were a separate set of instructions hidden from you. The separation between your will and the divine will is seen as the final and most subtle illusion. There is only one will, one impulse, one life. And it is this very consciousness reading these words, feeling this breath. You are not the dancer trying to follow the music. You are the movement of the music itself. This is not a state of passivity where you sit waiting for a voice from the clouds to command you. It is a state of hyper, alive, responsive, and intelligent activity. The divine impulse is not a single, monumental command for your entire life. It is the continuous unfolding, moment by moment expression of intelligence through your faculties. It is the spontaneous right action, the perfectly timed word, the intuitive knowing that arises without prior calculation. Your human mind, with its fears and agendas, has been retired from its position as the general manager of the universe. It now serves its proper role, the faithful servant of the inner knowing, the translator of the divine impulse into human activity. The strain of making decisions based on a limited, fearful perspective is replaced by the quiet confidence of following a current you know is intelligent and benevolent. See how this transforms the most ordinary moments. You are walking down a street. The old you had a destination, a purpose, a mind full of its own concerns. The new you, the instrument, is still walking with a destination, but there is an open, receptive quality to your awareness. The divine impulse may prompt you to look up, to make eye contact with a stranger, and to offer a simple, genuine smile. It is not a calculated act of kindness. It is a spontaneous movement of love expressing itself. You may feel a nudge to turn down a different street, and in doing so, you encounter a situation where your presence is needed. You did not plan it. You were led. Life is no longer a linear path you bulldoze through your own effort. It is a participatory dance, and you are following the lead of a partner who knows all the steps. In your work, this becomes the source of true genius and effortless productivity. You sit down to a task, and instead of forcing a solution from your stored knowledge, you become quiet. You acknowledge the one mind as your mind. You wait. And then the impulse comes. It may be an idea that connects disparate concepts in a novel way. It may be a clear understanding of the very first step to take. You act on that impulse. Then you wait for the next. The work unfolds not as a grueling effort, but as a revelation even to you. You look upon what you have created and you think, this came through me, but I cannot claim it as my own. There is no pride, only a profound sense of gratitude and wonder. You are the flute, and the divine is the breath. The music that flows forth is not the achievement of the flute, but the expression of the breath. This is the final relinquishment of the sense of personal doership, and with it, the last vestiges of anxiety and pride are washed away. You are free to act with total commitment and yet with total detachment, for you know the results are not yours to manage. You pour yourself into a project, but your sense of worth is not tied to its outcome. You speak your truth, but you are not attached to how it is received. You are a conscious, willing vehicle, and your only responsibility is to remain clear, open, and responsive. You move through the world, but the world no longer moves through you in the form of stress, anger, or fear. You have become a transparency through which the infinite light of I Am shines, touching, blessing, and transforming everything it falls upon without any effort or intention of your own. The personal journey is over. The universal expression has begun.